testimony. A C. A gap in the resume. Of the 3 years I spent in the store, I remember only the first and the last. The first year I worked too hard. It was my first job in the city, and I didn't understand yet how or how much to slack off. Besides, I was so green generally that I wouldn't have known what to do with any time I did win back. I had this weird one-bedroom in a discount luxury building in Williamsburg, the kind of place with rent figures and photographs of stagings pasted on the exterior between the first floor windows, and I spent those first few months of evenings just rearranging my furniture. Chipboard cabinets you could lift with your little finger, nothing that could hold a square. There was a balconette right level with the highway on-ramp, and a smart fridge somehow biometrically locked to the old tenant who I decided had died in there. In the fridge, so I got my water from the aerating faucet and my air too. Anyway, you might imagine how this led to my referring to the store as my haven. In private for the first part of the year, and then later to Andrew and Star when they were still together, and then to Janie when we were around each other for a little while. Early, before you gain consciousness, you might say things you mean to those around you, when they look like the strangers they are, look with their faces at yours and adjust their reflector dish to beam pain into yours. So stalking the store, cutting tape and dragging boxes on the linoleum floors, I became aware of a feeling I began to name Haven, though previously I had known it only as AC. Initials beginning something presumably finished somewhere else. And anyway, Haven was a name I'd always meant to take for my own. And the store was so plain and simple, like it was all one part, one single thing, so that being in there felt like floating in a homogeneous medium. In the Northeast, there are these towns with grand utopian names. Haven, Salem, Blessing, Athol, Gift. Towns of the great eastern ancestral floodplain. Towns brought on volunteer apple trees. Unpainted barns draped like tents on rotting central poles. Junk pits in mixed out shapes of the everywhere graveyard. I'd always meant to name something Haven in the spirit of those failed experiments, and so I finally did. The first year passed without professional incident. I gained no new responsibilities at the store, and I made no friends. At home with Janie in the blank space after what I eventually understood must have been a breakup, I cried more quietly than I thought I knew how, just by repeating that phrase in my mind. I made no friends at work all year. I made no friends at work all year. I loved how pathetic the phrase was. It didn't seem possible it had come from me. I spent a long time awake wondering at it, crying quieter and quieter. I realized I forgot to mention what sort of a store it was that I worked. Well, at the moment of death, just before you gain consciousness, there's a gap. And over that gap, an awning stretches. The last year at the store, a little before when the memories resume, they had closed it to foot traffic in order to fire the cleaning staff who, probably because they were working nights, had been drinking more coffee than the management felt comfortable supplying. We were still open for business, but they had roped off a little area in the front where people could come in and holler into the store for assistance. They would ask for something, you would go and get it. Sometimes it was the wrong thing. You can imagine. Anyway, by now I must have figured out better how to slack off, because this was an unbearable increase in work for me. And as the floors in the aisles got stickier and stickier, the tendons running along the back of my leg apparatus became either tighter or stronger, I couldn't tell. And the sensation at the end of the day home in bed was not the satisfaction of expenditure or fatigue, but this kind of muscular tedium. I remember thinking, this is how it becomes boring to be alive. Unable to quit, I resolved to get myself fired. I began to bring my gun to work. In the locker room, I showed it to my work friends in full view of my work enemies. When no complaints appeared, I accidentally discharged it into the sink in the women's room. I thought it would destroy the sink, but it didn't. The bullet got lodged in the ceramic so that it didn't even leak. It plugged its own hole. I began to leave my gun at home instead. I had moved. I was living now with a friend I had met at the store. I guess he liked me enough to want me there. I never felt so loved. I kept all my chipboard things from the luxury ones stashed in a storage locker. Only I'd left the key to the padlock inside the locker the last time I went to check in on everything, so, who knew? But the guy was sweet, in the way a guy can be sweet, which is kind of minimal. At least, well, you know what I mean. I wasn't mad to have the gun back around the house. He liked to take me driving and play taxi. He had taken over a car from his aunt when she broke her foot, and even once it healed, he just told her it was in the shop, which she liked. So he'd sit in the front and make me be his sexual passenger. I stopped going to work, hoping to press my release. We drove to see various useless forts along the seaboard, submerged artilleries, picnic tables, crusted grills, seabirds in motion, cannons, these beautiful cannons. I like to look at the cannons, reminding me the westward action of bleeding hearts, like mine, like his and mine. Action across the misery distance. It's fine for teenagers, because they can take it, but at some point, the pain is just pain. I asked him if we could stop playing taxi for a little. Don't make me turn this car around. Don't make me come back there. Young lady, don't make me. Young lady. Young lady. A C, a gap in the resume, likewise. All along the eastern recess, the teacher's voice. Don't make me come back there, you two. Don't make me come back there. You two. Each week I was back on the schedule. I could not believe it. I wasn't getting paid since I never clocked in, but still. I started going back in, just once or twice a week, as long as I could bear. Then I'd leave right in the middle of the shift, in the middle of the day. It was never satisfying. There's a world of difference. You'll see when you're my age, between leaving and sneaking off. One day, off-season, on the far side of Staten Island, he brought me to a carousel he'd been to as a boy. Of course, it was closed. It couldn't have been more than 35 degrees, but you could see in through the slats in the enclosure. Peeking into the stable, we circled, unfreezing the revelry, winding the tent pole, or unwinding maybe, I can't remember which way we went. And he said, taking my hand and squeezing it, he described how he'd come back here once with his parents. A field trip with the goal of glorying a little. In fact, they came with their entire sect. Italians, Koreans, Sri Lankans, anyone who was anyone, but also really just those three groups, which they internally refer to as the, quote, three fundamental kinds, unquote. The winding motion of the carousel was very affecting to him then, and at the end he managed twice to grab the brass ring from the bull's nose, which is a special glory to the Heavenly Mother, he learned, and a sign of good things to come. That's when I first understood I was going to be a great man someday, he told me, and then he got down on one knee. From his purse he produced the 2 brass rings. He was still holding my hand. It was the wrong hand, which I saw him realize. It was very exciting for me. I think it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened in my life. The consummation of changes is never, in my experience, that kind of point event. Each change leaks slowly into awareness in the most dissatisfying way. The space between those changes form your time on Earth, and that structure takes form in experience as the imperceptible discharge of initials, all the world's initials. AC through you and into yours. So I was raised, at least, and for a long time it seemed true. And yet in the city that first year, I must have sensed this was not everywhere the case. All around you, things are coming to a head. Points. I saw a child get hit by a car. Someone dropped their phone down a grate taking a video of a street fight. A burglar is climbing your fire escape, young lady. And there ascends the undercover after him. All these events shine like points in the airfield. The way to the bathroom at the picture show. I felt intuitively, I don't think I could have let myself say it, that if I could get into that world even briefly, the world of point events, that I might be able to impale myself on something or someone and make it out. And when I took the heavy ring in my palm and gripped it, I felt the most pleasurable, piercing sensation, like puncture, rupture, tear out, whatever, the hole to pass through. A hole to turn me inside out. My own public fistula. And it was only after the wedding, after getting well and stuck together, lying in bed, his head on my chest, snoring in a way that sent me into concerned research on my phone, that I finally received my termination notice from the store. Of course, there was the honeymoon, and then the unpacking of gifts. I didn't want to look for a new job right away. I was so satisfied to have made it out, I figured I deserved to bask in it a little bit. I went to get my stuff out of the storage locker to move it in, but it had been sold. They sawed the lock off for some reason. That shook me a little. I mean, it was a lock they gave me. Didn't they have a key? So yeah, that set me back another couple months on the job search. But I'm ready to work again now. I have a lot of skills still. I don't have the number of a manager or something. There's not someone you can call. But if you look at me, if you really take me in and think carefully about what I've said, I think you'll see that I have a lot to offer in terms of skill, acumen, and tool use.